Hello, folks, and welcome back to Learn Synthesis with VCV Rack. I'm your host, Dr. Lawrence W. Moore. In this episode, we are going to be kind of rounding off our tour of video game emulators, meaning sound system emulators in the KautenjaDSP series of modules that are for VCV Rack. These are free modules, and they're well worth your while in downloading them. And this episode is going to conclude with a number of modules that are Nintendo oriented. The Namco 163 chipset. It has an 8 oscillator wavetable synthesis for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and also some Super Nintendo emulators that are an ADSR, a delay module, and a VCA that has some interesting filtering on it. So these are all pretty cool modules, and I'll help you navigate them. They're a little bit tricky, but I want to make an announcement as far as my videos and what's going to be coming up soon. This is episode 10 in this series 3, where we covered the Rack 2 Pro modules as well as the KautenjaDSP modules. Series 4 will be forthcoming, but I'm also going to be starting a series on learning synthesis with Ableton Live. But not to worry if you're not interested in that and want more VCV Rack, that will continue. I'll just be alternating one day to the next which series gets released, so you don't have to wait long if you're interested in VCV Rack. I will also be doing a second series in VCV Rack where it's more oriented towards instruments or patches that I make and that I show. And so that way people that are interested in learning how to make certain types of sounds can see that. And of course, this series in the overall series, Learn Synthesis with VCV Rack, will continue with sub-series 4, which will be exploring more and more modules. So people that want to see all these other different modules are out there, and I don't think I'll ever be able to cover all of them, but I'm going to cover the ones that I find to be truly powerful and interesting. So we do have those things to come. This is episode 10. Episode 11 will be on still KautenjaDSP, but it'll be a mutable instruments modeling module. So it's not really video game oriented, but more standard Eurorack oriented. And then I'll finish off episode 12 of series 3 with the RCM modules, which are pretty cool modules. There's just a few of them, but I think they're very useful, so I want to cover them right at the end. They should fit in one episode. And then series 4 will begin. Learn Synthesis with Ableton Live will begin. And I'm not sure of the name of the next series. It'll probably be VCV Rack Instruments and Patches, something like that. And that one I'm not going to break up into these sub-series chapters. So I'm going to make it just one long playlist so people can go through it years from now and check out all different types of sounds. So without further ado, let's get started on this episode. Okay, here we are. I have all the modules that I'm going to do in this episode laid out. So I'll just point out here to start. We're just going to start with MIDI in, going to the Namco, well, they call it name comp, I guess, just to not make it the same exact name, but it's modeling the Namco 163 wavetable generator that has 8 oscillators in it. And then it's just going out the audio out. So I'll introduce the other modules as we hook them up. Now, like a lot of these emulators that are in the KautenjaDSP series of modules, we do have 8 oscillators here in one set. Now, so far we've been dealing like 3 or 4. Sometimes it'd be 3 tones or different types of tones, triangle, square, in the different slots, and some noise in another slot. It varies from, whatever is in the chipset that it's modeling. This chipset has 8 wavetable oscillators. The way it works, though, is you have a channel selector up here, which default is set to 1. And if you just want to use one of the oscillators, you start with this one at the bottom and do the audio out from it, because if you could hook up your audio out to any of the ones above, you're not going to get sound when you're set to just one channel. If you have this hooked up and then you hook up another audio cable to another output, then you could get to multiple channels as you select multiple channels here, and they could be in their own discrete audio outputs. Or, like I'll show you in a moment, you could use 2 oscillators through one audio output here, if I add the extra channel, and so forth. So that's the channel knob here, and here is the wavetable knob, and it is set to 1. Want to make sure there. You can right click on it and just type the number in. You see there's 5 here. And channels, there are 8. So it's easier just to right click on it and type in the number. Make sure you're accurate. So here we go. So that would be this waveform up here that is kind of like a bumpy sinusoidal waveform. Let's go to 2, which will be square wave-like. All right. And we can hear wavetable 3, which is like a reverse saw wave. And actually, I'm going to skip right now to 5 just to see, because that should sound very similar in that this is a sawtooth going the ramping down the same direction, but okay. The change of direction does alter the sound a little bit. This one sounds a little bit brighter. And of course, it's hard to tell whether the bumps are exactly the same or not. It's a bumpy sawtooth. All right, and then we have this one here, number 4, which is a real choppy triangular wave type of shape, but it's very choppy, so it has more harmonics than a triangle wave. Very video gamey. So, and I am assuming, as usual, like the other wavetable emulator that we saw earlier in this 3rd series, you can draw. You have to drag click, but it pretty much coaxes you kind of near, like there I was moving around and it kind of coaxed it close to a square wave, but as you see, it's a little bit deformed. So let's just hear what that sounds like compared to the square wave below it that's less deformed. Depending on what you're hearing this on, if it's a cell phone speaker, you may not hear much difference at all. They are very similar, but I could hear some differences here using headphones in the harmonic spectra. So I am going to initialize. And whoa! Sorry about that. I thought I initialized, and this is certainly not the initial patch. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. And we're hearing sound. I do have gate on. Let's see. Oh, okay. We're set to more channels than one. See, when you're using multiple channels, since we are just coming out this channel, but if this is set to maybe like 3 or 4 channels, you know, the bottom channels are coming out like 3 or 4, whichever one it's set to. They're coming out this output, and since there's no gate on them, you're going to hear them. Now, if I were to pop this up here, you see we do get audio signal. We do get audio signal. We do get audio signal. Up here we don't, because I guess this is set to 4. Yeah, if we set it to 1, you see we don't get audio signal on even channel number 2. We would only get it on channel 1. I have the volume down so we don't have to hear the noise of it, but since this one has gate on, we don't see it. So I press a key, and then you can see it flickering there, going on and off with the gate. So I have the gate right now hooked up straight to the amp input here. So it chops on and chops off. When the waveform's complex enough, you don't really hear the artifact so much. And since this is a bumpy sine wave, not really hearing like a real snappy, clear artifact. It's just a strong cut on, cut off. We'll be exploring this ADSR in a moment. And so this is a Super Nintendo ADSR. It's actually 2 channels, the top one and the bottom one. So it can be used for stereo. But let me show you here that now that we're on 1 channel, we got that. And if I set this to 2 channels, we got 2 tones. But since there's no pitch coming into this one, it's just set on a certain pitch. Now I tuned it to the note I'm playing through this one where pitch is coming in. So you could do things like that if you want to. Let me initialize it and hook up pitch to it, so pitch is coming in. Oh, actually, just to be a little more efficient about it, what you can do, let me disconnect that. Oh, I hooked it there. Okay. You can hook up the pitch to here because you see the arrows going down. When you're going in here, it will go straight down to this. You can even though you're not using these oscillators, I could hook pitch up to oscillator 1 here, and it will still carry it all the way down. So these bottom 2, since I selected 2 channels here, these 2 oscillators are working simultaneously, and even though pitch is coming here because it goes down. Same thing with gate. But now I'm going to move it down here and have gate down here. I didn't really need to do that, but I am going to shortly use this ADSR. But like I've been showing folks, you know, this is a good way to get chorusing, to get a little fatter sound. Let's take the frequency in hertz and just say +1. And frequency in hertz here, say -1. So we get our chorusing, something I like to show frequently. Whenever there's multiple oscillators around, it's a great way of fattening up the sound. But now one thing we can do, and let me shut down the volume here so we don't hear it play when I remove the gate. When you take the gate off, it'll just sound. Oh, that's right, I have it on. My blue light glasses are kind of filtering the light, and I couldn't see where I had it. There we go. So let's hook this up to gate input here. And we can do a second one here because we actually have 2 ADSRs in this module. There we go. And then we'll take a gate out. We'll say the left one is for the top one. So we'll put that up here. And the right one is for the bottom one. I'm going out the out and into the gate, because this is gate with node on, node off. If you were using a sequencer that was sending out triggers, they're just on signals, you would use this input. This is an inversion of your envelope. So it'll be the opposite of the shape that you create with your settings here. Okay, now that I have both gates hooked up, I can turn my volume back on. All right. Now here we have ADSR settings. Attacks all the way up. Let's make it quicker. This one's already a bit quicker. Like that. So these are going to be like very similar. Sustains all the way up and releases right there. Okay, so these are now the same. Just about. I don't know if they're exactly the same, but now this ADSR, you may be hearing a little bit of rippling there, type of sound. This is what's doing it. You know, we didn't hear it before, and I did test it out beforehand when I put in another envelope generator like VCV's ADSR. I don't hear that. So this envelope generator is giving us, if you're listening closely, especially either through good speakers or headphones, you can hear a bit of a. I think that's intentional. Probably it's like giving you a raw video gamey type sound, I guess. But one of the uses here is like if you want your second sound to come in a little bit later, you can turn up your ADSR. That would be, I believe, I have that hooked up to this above oscillator. Here, let's change the frequency to differentiate them. I'm going to initialize them both and take this one and say times, need an asterisk for that, 2. So that's going to be up the octave. I think this one is actually the lower one because I hear the lower tone coming in slower. No, it is the upper octave tone coming in slower. Now, I'm still holding the key because I just wanted to show you. I was still holding the key there, but it went away. This sustain slider here is not sustain level as is common. Even though it's receiving gate that gives it the node on and the node off, apparently in this chipset, your sustain was more of a time rather than level. So when you hold down the key, it will go through the sustain and release portions according to the time interval, I guess, you select with this slider. Here, I'll make this one longer and this one even shorter, so now the low tone will go away quicker. So, yeah, you can make some really retro game sounds with this stuff. And, but yeah, that kind of sound, it sounds like the envelope just isn't super accurate, or it's like a shape at a lower bit resolution, so that probably modeling that chip, so you don't hear a smooth transition in amplitude. I wonder if a slew would take care of that. Just indulge me for a moment here. I'll use the process module from VCV. Two of them. Gotta turn this down so we don't hear things sound when I release the gate. So we're going in each of these, and this is just an experiment to see if we can use this ADSR a little more smoothly. I'm not sure if this will do it or not. Slews do typically smooth things out, but it may not be enough. Okay, got to turn up the volume again. All right. It's still there. Turn it up all the way and see. Now we... No, it's still there. So what I'm going to do for the rest of this is pop in the VCV ones. I mean, if you want those ripples, I mean, I guess they could sound classy in some sort of way. But I'll just type in EG here and get... I want to make sure I get the VCV one. Hold on. There it is. There we go. And now I am going to hook you up here to gate. And then to be able to hook up two of them, you got to start from destination, go to source. Then we can hook up this gate. We'll say left is top, I believe. And, well, completely my decision. And then we go there. All right. Got to turn up the volume. I hear a little roughness in the sound. It does sound smoother, but I still hear some roughness in the sound. Interesting. But those ripples, they're kind of sort of there. When the gate was going straight to the amplitude, it was not. It was not doing it. So obviously it's the amplitude input here that is giving us a little bit of ripply effect. Well, we can always go back to what we had to begin with and just hook up the gate to the amplitude directly. Because the ripply effect is going to kind of maybe be a little bit annoying with the next thing I'm going to show. All right, so these are two oscillators. The upper one is up an octave from the bottom one. I'm going to change that now. And then once again, just do a chorusing. I'm going to say +1 hertz and -1 hertz. because what we're going to hook up next is the delay here. This is a Super Nintendo delay. Yeah, let's do the upper one left, lower one right. These are our inputs on the delay module that are stereo. And so you want a slightly different signal on either side in order for it to sound truly stereo. In this case, it's an alteration of pitch. Chorusing effect, basically. Makes it sound nice and wide. If you're listening on a cell phone speaker or a laptop speaker that's built in, you may not hear that spread as much. But definitely on headphones, you hear it, or stereo speakers that are spaced well enough apart. Now, we are bypassed on the delay, but the sound is going through. It's just going through dry without the delay effect. So I'm going to turn bypass off here. And you see I do have the delay turned up. This is basically the space in between the iterations in the delay. So when it's 12 o'clock, there's nothing. When you go a little bit to the right, that's a short time interval between the iterations. Turn it up, you get a longer one. And the feedback is for how long these iterations are looped back in. So it basically is kind of like a delay tail. There, we're just getting like 1, 2, 3, something like that. And of course, there's CV inputs to alter these. I could hook this up to the mod wheel. Like that, and maybe turn it all the way up. The mod wheel's down. So since the mod wheel's down and it's feeding it information, this is then controlling how far up the mod wheel can go. So with the mod wheel down, oh, that's pretty long. Oh, okay, so this is different. This is not guiding the range. It looks like your CV input will guide the range. So I could leave that in 12 o'clock. There's hardly anything. And as I turn up the mod wheel, it's more. Okay, now there are also here coefficient inputs. I've been trying to work with these, and let me just hit a note. Now turn the mod wheel all the way up. I'm hearing basically the same thing. I tried to adjust it. This range is 1 to -1, or -1 up to 1. But I have not been hearing any differences when I've been using these coefficients. And I've been going through each one. So if anyone has a suggestion, please let me know. But at this point, I have not figured these out completely. But the way it sounds, these would work with your reiterations in the delay, probably sculpting their amplitude. But I haven't been able to get them to actually do that. And it looks like there's 8 of them. Okay, so let me see here. But it's a good sounding delay. Let me make the feedback a little bit longer. And probably if you adjust this just right, you might be able to get this to lock into a tempo. There's no clock input. This is CV. Well, let me just make sure. Yeah, delay input. It's CV values to affect the values of this, so there isn't a sync. Now, just to hear what I'm going to show next, clear and on its own, I'm going to bypass this module. So the audio will go through it, but you won't hear delay. And we're going to go into the in left and right here on this Super VCA. So you would think it's just a level control for amplitude. It has a little bit more than that. We do have amplitude controls right here. And interestingly enough, since this takes, it isn't an envelope really, because it takes the audio ins and outs. It doesn't send, you know, like a CV to controlled gate or the amplitude inputs on the module. Basically, sounds like I've got my channels opposite. Well, it doesn't matter whether it's the lower or the upper one. Left and right. Left and right. Out left, out right, because on my headphones, I was hearing the opposite. And I usually don't. I do have my things set up right that I should not be hearing them opposite. It doesn't happen with other modules, so that's a little strange. Now, there is a frequency control here, and it's called a filter. And the filter modes, I looked them up in the actual manual. And the way you do that is you can go right click on it, go to info. And then when you go to manual, here, it will give you a browse window to download the PDF from the website, so you can download the manual. Or there's an option there to browse in library, so you could go to the VCV Rack website and the library page straight to this module and click on its manual there. So I looked it up, and these filter modes are: red is for loud. You hit the filter button. Green is something called weird. And that's where you can use the frequency knobs here. And I hear slight alterations in the sound, but you probably aren't hearing it unless you're using headphones and listening closely. There I hear a higher frequency, kind of like distortion in the upper, higher frequency range. Now on both sides, the same thing. So it's really kind of adding some noise to it. It's not a low pass, not a high pass, not a band pass. This is just called weird. When you click this, now it's on a quiet filter. And actually you do hear a lower level of amplitude. And the same type of thing. When I turn this up, I do hear a little bit of higher frequency noise in there. And so forth. And then when you click it to this setting, kind of like black, it's called barely audible or something like that, it means, you know, much quieter. So it's really filtering the amplitude, but there's a frequency thing here that adds a little bit of noise glitch to it. I put on loud, maybe we'll hear that noise glitch louder. Now then, it's still pretty subtle. Still pretty subtle. But anyway, that is that, as one might say. I am going to try something here. Turn this down. I am going to hook up the gates that I have here to the amplitude inputs here for left and for right. See what happens when we use them directly. It is working to use the gate here. Very snappy, no envelope shaping whatsoever. Over here we didn't hear it sound this snappy. Yeah, a little bit too snappy. So it's not really an envelope option, I would say, unless you really want things to be glitchy. So anyway, there we go. We've explored these, what was it, 4 different modules: Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo. Yeah, obviously you can use this in a polyphonic way by having different pitches going in, different gates going in, and you could mix these outputs using a mixer module, kind of like the one in MindMeld. There's an 8-channel mixer in MindMeld that I've showed earlier in the series when working with drum modules right here. There's a 16-channel version as well, but that's probably my favorite mixer that I found so far. So you could do that. But otherwise, you know, putting these sounds together is another thing. I am going to do something here right at the end. I'm going to take you out. Just use the delay here. I'm going to switch this to be left input, left mono. Output. Sorry, I'll connect that after I connect the gate. I've been good about it so far in this episode of getting the volume down when I disconnect gate. Okay. I'm going to set this to 3 channels. Oh boy. There we go. Sorry about that. Did it again. So yeah, the gate needs to be on 1, 2, 3 when you have 3 channels, because the arrow points downward. And what we're going to do, I think we still have pitch here. It's on 2. Put on 3 there. I'm going to initialize this to make sure it's centered, and these are pitched up and down. And if you want to, you can adjust the amplitude right here. If we want to use a 4th one here, as frequency modulation. Maybe this oscillator here, we can do so. Let's see if we hear it or if I need to set this to 4 channels. We do not, so I need to set this to 4 channels. The gate doesn't need to be set on here because its audio output is really being used as a modulator here. It's hooked up here instead of going out audio. Wait a second here. Oh yeah, I need to turn up the FM here to allow for input. So you could get some really thick stuff. And incidentally, let's go down to 1 channel, and just to show that with all these oscillators going, if I was doing more than 1 channel, it would get real too quick, too fat. I mean, too thick, too fast. Is what I'm about to do. You can put your MIDI input into, or if you're using a step sequencer that has polyphony capabilities, you can set it to polyphonic mode, and you do get multiple pitches at the same time. There you go. Sounds nice and Nintendo-y. Alright folks, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the episode or got something out of it. So please hit that like button. Share on social media. I do very little social media. Starting to try and do it now, you know, to help promote the series. But if you have a question, leave a comment. If you have any constructive suggestions, that would also be welcomed. Or just saying hello would be lovely too. Sometimes it gets a little lonely doing the videos. I feel like I'm going one direction and I'm not getting much coming back the other way. But until next time, take care and stay free.